Namaskar, hello, and a very warm welcome to CIET NCERT's live phone-in special program. This is our Teaching Learning Interventions for Inclusive Classroom series, and my name is Tanvi Khurana. आप हमें इस वक्त देख रहे हैं क्लास 1 से लेकर eVidya चैनल नंबर 1 से लेकर चैनल नंबर 12 तक, और इस पूरे कार्यक्रम को आप हमारे YouTube चैनल्स पर भी देख सकते हैं, ncertofficial and ncert PMeVIDYA चैनल नंबर 1 टू चैनल नंबर 12। आज जिस विषय पर हम बातचीत करने वाले हैं वो आप सभी को बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग लगने वाला है। हम बात करने वाले हैं स्टोरीज वर्थ शेयरिंग अंडरस्टैंडिंग डिसलेक्सिया। So initially we'll understand what dyslexia is, and there are certain things that we need to know about this problem, dyslexia. And is this a problem? Can we call it a problem? What exactly is dyslexia, and who are the people who suffer from dyslexia? How are they different from other people? So there's a lot that we need to talk about, and we have a guest in our studio. उन्हें बहुत खुशी होगी आपके सभी सवालों का जवाब देकर। अगर आपके पास कोई सवाल हैं डिसलेक्सिया से जुड़े हुए, या आपके पास कोई कहानियाँ हैं जो आप शेयर करना चाहते हैं, प्लीज़ बी अ पार्ट ऑफ दिस प्रोग्राम। चलिए आपका परिचय करवाएंगे हमारी आज की मेहमान से। वी हैव विद अस मिस अपराजिता सिंह। मैम, अ वेरी वार्म वेलकम टू यू। Ma'am is a lead at Change Inc. and she's from Higher Education and Assistive Technology. So she'll be with us throughout this program and she'll be answering a lot of my questions. आपका इंट्रोडक्शन करवाना चाहेंगे हमारी साइन लैंग्वेज इंटरप्रेटर से भी, आप अपनी स्क्रीन पर देख सकते हैं। हमारे साथ हैं सावरी रोहेला। अ वेरी वार्म वेलकम टू यू सावरी। सावरी, हर एक शब्द जो भी यहाँ पर डिस्कस होगा उसे साइन लैंग्वेज में इंटरप्रेट करके आप तक पहुँचाएंगी, तो आई होप वो आपके बहुत काम आएगा। अगर आपके पास कोई सवाल है तो आप हमें बहुत सारे मीडियम्स के ज़रिए पहुंचा सकते हैं। आप चाहें तो हमें फ़ोन कीजिए, नंबर है 8800440559, और आप हमें इस वक्त हमारे चैनल्स पर लाइव देख ही रहे हैं। चलिए हम बातचीत करते हैं मैम से, अपराजिता मैम से। मैम, एक बार फिर से आपका स्वागत है। क्योंकि हम यहाँ डिसलेक्सिया पर बात कर रहे हैं, स्टोरीज वर्थ शेयरिंग अंडरस्टैंडिंग डिसलेक्सिया। लेट्स जस्ट अंडरस्टैंड डिसलेक्सिया। अगर आप एक लेमैन्स लैंग्वेज में डिसलेक्सिया की आम भाषा में डेफिनेशन समझाना चाहेंगी तो वो क्या होगा?
Definitely. So dyslexia, I think we've heard a lot about it. We are very familiar with one of the movies that we've seen, which is Tare Zameen Par.
Yes.
And we remember watching this kid who had a lot of struggles in terms of reading. We remember that how these letters were fluttering around him and they were flying. So dyslexia in our country, India, is a recognized disability under the Rights of Persons with Disability Act 2016. And if I have to talk about it in just one sentence, it will be that dyslexia is a struggle with processing language. So people with dyslexia will not be able to read at a fast pace. They will not be very great with dictation. They will not be very great and will struggle with reading comprehension, right? It will be difficult for them to be able to pronounce new words that they are coming across, because हर लेटर का एक साउंड होता है, राइट? और जब हम वो साउंड सुनते हैं तो वी आर जनरली एबल टू स्टैब्लिश इट विद वन ऑफ द लेटर्स। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर मैंने कैट बोला, so you know k will be c or k, a will be a, t will be t. But people with dyslexia, it's very difficult कि जो साउंड है और जो लेटर है उसे साथ में ऐसे कोरिलेट करके इस्टेब्लिश कर पाएँ। So basically the struggle revolves around processing language, and this will be with reading and writing because वो आगे वैसे ही manifest होता है। And if I talk about it a little bit more in detail, you have to remember a person with dyslexia will always have average or above average IQ. So what I'm trying to establish by this is, अगर एक इंसान को, एक बच्चे को dyslexia है, this disability is not hampering their intelligence, which is a very common misconception that we have. We also need to know that this is a disability, एंड वाई एम आई सेइंग दिस इज़ अ डिसेबिलिटी? जो डिसेबिलिटीज़ होती हैं वो क्योरेबल नहीं होती हैं, right? We learn to manage them over a period of time with teaching interventions, strategies, but they stay forever. So ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं जब 10 साल की थी मुझे डिसलेक्सिया था, अब मैं 30-31 की होने वाली हूँ तो मेरा डिसलेक्सिया चला जाएगा. The second common myth is that डिसलेक्सिया किस लैंग्वेज में होता है. तो मे बी मुझे हिंदी में डिसलेक्सिया है, इंग्लिश में नहीं. नो, दैट विल नेवर हैपन. इफ़ यू हैव डिसलेक्सिया यू विल हैव दैट मैनिफेस्ट इन all languages because it's hampering your wiring which is used to read and process language. So that is one thing. The other thing is that it's a condition that runs in the family, right? So more than often you will figure out that somebody in your family also might have similar struggles. Maybe they don't know, they're not aware, they're not diagnosed. And the last thing I would want to talk about it is that you always are able to overcome a lot of struggles with the right accommodation, support systems and strategies. So if I have to call it out a disability, it is definitely a recognized disability in the country, but with the support that exists from school to higher education, it is a disability that with enough accommodation, intervention and strategies, you will be able to overcome.
Okay, so you said that this is a disability in India, but is it not the case in the entire world, or there are different disabilities in different countries?
Thank you for the question. So why did I say this is a formally recognized disability in India? Because this has been very recently formally recognized, which is 2016. So before that, yes, it was a disability, people had it. Because there was no formal recognition, it was difficult to get access to accommodation in your school, college or other institutes and during your journey. But because it's been formally recognized, the government, the mandates, the regulators, they push for inclusive and equitable learning right from the foundational classes up towards your higher education.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's say a person is sick, and we can call that person that he is simply sick. So if I can call a person that he is dyslexic or she is dyslexic, and if I am calling that he is an individual with dyslexia, there are two like phrases.
Yes.
Are they similar, and what is the difference, if there is any difference?
Yes, that's a very great question. Thank you for bringing it up. So what happens is that sometimes we will need to acknowledge that in the terminology that we use towards people with disability, and I will just talk about dyslexia because I am somebody with this disability, we always prefer that as a second or a third person. When we address somebody, we address to them with the phrase, this is a person with dyslexia. We will not directly describe them as dyslexic, but a person with dyslexia as a first person may choose to still describe themselves as dyslexic or a person with dyslexia, so it's their choice. But if you're not a person with dyslexia and you're addressing somebody, it's more than often more respectable to call them a person with this disability XYZ, whichever that disability is.
So it's an individual choice.
Yes, because you cannot take it for granted that their disability is their first identity.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. This is something common people needs to learn.
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned that you are a person who is suffering from dyslexia, or you're an individual with dyslexia. Would you like to tell us that when did you discover that you have dyslexia, and how do normal people, or people from dyslexia, people who have dyslexia, they get to know that okay, this is the point, I'm having trouble here, and yes, I am an individual with dyslexia.
Yes, so this is very interesting. Okay, I am somebody who has everyday struggles with dyslexia, and because it's a lifelong condition, I know, and we all should know, that a person is born with it. How do you start understanding it? So I will try and talk from a perspective of a child, a parent, and also maybe a facilitator, that can be an educator that is working with a child with dyslexia. So when I was little, जब मैं बहुत छोटी थी, and when we are introduced to school, so the common things that we come across is, 3-letter words, rhymes. These are the basic things that we start diving into as children, and that was very difficult for me. And I would come back and I would be excellent orally, like when there was any interaction, you will see that these children are doing very well with their oral communication. But when you look at their written performance, there's a massive gap. आपको अधिकतर लगेगा ये बच्चा जिससे मेरी बात हुई है, जिससे इंटरेक्शन हुआ है, और ये बच्चा जिसकी कॉपी, आंसर शीट, असाइनमेंट हम चेक कर रहे हैं, ये दो अलग अलग लोग हैं. And that is because it's very difficult for you to be able to process your knowledge and put it across in written format. So those were some common struggles that I faced as a child, and this used to also overwhelm me a lot, right? You go to school, and what happens more than often is you should be good at reading and writing. Only if you're good at reading and writing are you a smart child. Or the common terminologies that comes out of frustration from facilitators, peers would be, oh, you're so stupid, oh, you're so duffer, can't you just understand a simple 3-letter word, right? And while I can understand it, I can talk about it, it will be very difficult for me to express the same knowledge in a format which is written, right? Writing based or reading based. So that was one of the first struggles. Coming to the other struggles, I used to get overwhelmed very quickly, right? I would be overwhelmed very quickly. I would fear judgment around me, so I would not talk a lot. And I would fear going to school, right? And because I did not know what was exactly happening, I used to make up stories saying that, oh, my head is hurting or my stomach is hurting and I don't want to go to school. So these are the children who will often say that मेरे सर में दर्द है, पेट में दर्द है, मुझे स्कूल नहीं जाना. They will try to pull up some excuse. These are the children who are going to be very they're going to be the disruptors in classroom, because उन्हें खुद नहीं समझ में आ रही रहती है बहुत सारी चीज़ें, and they fear this judgment. They create smaller disturbances in the class, but they are smart students. So these were the common struggles, I think, for my parents and my educators. Academic lag is something that all children go through at one point or the other. It could be because you're a first generational learner, you're new to the medium of instruction, right? There has been a summer slide, a lag in your studies, so academics are hampered. But when you see a child's academic being hampered, their life skills being hampered, and also their social, emotional existence being hampered, when all these are being hampered together, you should understand that they might be struggling with a specific learning disability. Could be dyslexia, dyscalculia, more than these two, both these, combination of dysgraphia, dyscalculia, any of these, but you should understand academic, life skills, social emotional well-being. When all of this is hampered, your child, your student might be at a very high risk of having a specific learning disability.
Okay. And does it happen, like you said, that people with dyslexia, they have an average or above average IQ? So is it the case that they are not good with the words or alphabets and language, but they could be brilliant at other things, at other activities, be it painting, or be it some sports, or be it music or singing or anything else?
Yes. Again, a very interesting question. So while I talk about that your language processing is impacted, you are born with a set of skills which we say which is dyslexic thinking, or the dyslexia edge that you have. You're very good with visualizing, you're very good with your communication, you're very good with your problem solving, you are able to perceive the larger problems, join the dot, look at the big picture, create a sustainable solution. And when I say that, all of us, wherever we are sitting right now, will have one invention or the other which is by a person with dyslexia, right? So if you have your laptops, then it will be either it's HP or Apple, founder of both, had dyslexia. If we are looking at the light bulb, which I'm sure everybody would have in their rooms currently, it is by a person with dyslexia, which is Mr. Edison. Then our phones, right? A.G. Graham Bell. So if I keep on talking, the Wright brothers. So everything and anything that has made our life very easy has been an invention of a person with dyslexia. Though their language skill was compromised, they went ahead making bigger creations and inventions. There's another very interesting fact: 40% of self-made millionaires around us right now are people with dyslexia.
Okay.
Walt Disney, right, who's powered our imagination, they work towards productivity. So while their wiring gives them a lag with their language processing, they're born with certain set of skills which makes them amazing inventors and disruptors, and therefore it becomes our responsibility to support them to be able to nourish those skills to be maybe the next millionaire, billionaire inventor of a sustainable invention.
Okay, so you took some of the great names, and we're thankful for what they did to the entire world. And we would like to know that were there any challenges that you faced due to your dyslexia?
Oh yes, I think there are certain set of challenges which still continue to exist, and sometimes you get very overwhelmed, right? It's very difficult even today, and we are solving for that, and therefore today we are talking about this because of the lack of awareness and sensitivity around this disability. People have this common confusion regarding, oh, I'm sure if you're not able to read and write, they just like somehow imagine you will not be a person with a great IQ or will be a smart person. So that is there. There's a lot of sense of judgment, which I think I'm at a stage in my life which I'm comfortable with. I have my support system, but college and school was very difficult, right? I was homeschooled till 9th standard for the same reason. And by the time I went to school, I was a little bit more open about it. I could express my struggles just to make sure my peers understand it better, just so that my educators could give me the right kind of accommodation. And also there's always this confusion that if accommodations are being provided, they're taking away from the rigor of the curriculum, right? So because it was not formally recognized, educators would shy away from providing those accommodation. But we always stick to this very great example of how when a student because of any XYZ accident they break their limb, right, and they have a plaster. So the one go-to accommodation we provide them is giving them a scribe, right? And we give them a scribe with this intent that while this child will be unable to write because they temporarily have injured their arm, their intelligence, their knowledge is still intact, and that could come across through a scribe on paper. Similarly, you have to understand that a child who has a disability and that manifests in the form of not being able to write or read well, when you're giving them the scribe, you're not compromising from the rigor of the curriculum or giving them an added advantage. This is something that they need to be able to express their knowledge in the best form. Or the other example is that now how all of us wear our specs, right? Never does anybody ask me that, oh, if you're sitting for this particular exam, I need you to take your glasses out and write. This is an accommodation that helps me perform better. So we need to together understand that accommodations are helping us perform better. They're not an added advantage, or they're not taking away from the rigor of what is being taught in the classroom.
Okay, so okay, so the teachers or the school administration need to work on this particular thing.
Definitely. I think some of the boards, if I talk about CBSE, they have a very expansive list of accommodation. They also provide you a choice of subject to take up, and that's beautiful. So I think altogether, when I look at the mandates, bodies like NCRT, when we look at Diksha as a platform, we are embedding accessibility, we are providing accommodation. So I think as educators, as facilitators, it's very imperative for us to know what kind of accommodations are the right accommodation that will make sure a person with disability, a student with disability, and any disability in a classroom is not struggling. In fact, we are working together in a very inclusive manner to enhance their skills, the skill sets that they are born with, and if we nourish them, they'll have a better life trajectory, learning journey as adults.
I'm sure. So here, ma'am, I would like to ask you that are there any specific tools or strategies that help you manage dyslexia?
Oh, definitely. I think one of the most important things for you is to be self-aware of your struggle, right? It becomes very important for you to understand, oh, I'm not able to read because there's a lot of movement in what I'm seeing while I'm reading, right? Or I'll not be very good with dictations because I will not be able to sort of transfer the phonological sounds that I'm listening to into what I'm writing. So that these are the things that it's very important for me to be aware of. My parents really helped me be aware of these struggles. Once I was aware, I knew what could help me better. So
sorry, I'm interrupting you here. You're talking very softly.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'll try to be a little louder.
Yeah.
So in terms of being self-aware is one. Second is because I very clearly knew what my struggles were, and that is because of my parents primarily. I knew what kind of accommodations will help me. Technology has become a big support, right? There's a lot of speech to text to speech features that are available on our desktops, laptops, notes, and also on our phones, right? Then you have word prediction that really helps me. Then you have spell check, that is another thing that really helps me perform better. And because I self-advocate, I always tell the other person that I'm working with that I have a disability and my disability manifests in this form. Please excuse me, and I would look forward for some support from your end. So that sort of really helps me. There were a lot of overstimulation issues, and one very interesting thing that happened with me is that I grew up with therapy animals. I live with therapy animals, so in any situation where things were very aggravating, there was a lot of sense of judgment, or a big task to complete, and I would get very anxious, very overstimulated, and that is something that my support animals would really help me, sort of be able to navigate better through. So these things have really helped me, which is tech, self-awareness, and therapy animals.
That's great. And what about the people who are around you, your family, your peers who supported you? And if in case they have not been there, do you think the situation would be bad?
Okay, so one reason why people around me have been a huge pillar of support for me because of early identification. So I am an individual who was identified with a disability at the age of 5, right? So ever since I've been existing on this planet, people around me knew about my disability. They knew how to be sensitive towards my needs, what are the accommodations that will help me perform better, and that sort of helped me. Therefore, I would request that there are a lot of tools that now exist for facilitators, for parents to be able to at least see that if my child is at risk or my student is at risk of a disability, right? And if you think the assessment says so, you should go ahead for a formal diagnosis. You go ahead with a formal diagnosis, you get your disability ID, which becomes very, very important for you to get the needed accommodation in the country. So I would request you to look in for early identification, early diagnosis, and this is very easily available right now in India. So I would request all teachers and parents to make sure the earlier you are identified and diagnosed, early on support system starts to build up, and that really helps you be a better individual and have a very fantastic learning journey.
Okay, so this is a request to the parents and teachers. But what about other people who have dyslexia? So do you have any advice, any suggestion for them?
Oh yes, I would want to call it out very clearly for people with dyslexia, for students with dyslexia. While you might be really struggling with reading and writing, know that dyslexia is your superpower. You're very resilient because you're somebody with dyslexia. You have the dyslexic edge because your mind is really focusing on, problem solving, communicating better, innovating better. So remember that you can be the inventor of tomorrow. Know that you are a very resilient person, and with the right accommodation you will cope in a very brilliant way. And remember that your disability will actually help you perform better and innovate better. So while you're struggling with reading and writing and certain things that make you very overwhelmed, call in for accommodation, request for accommodation, call in for the right support system, and you will see there's going to be a wonderful journey ahead of you.
I'm sure the other people have, they have taken a note of your advice, and they'll be following your footsteps too. We would like to know that you mentioned that you had homeschooling till class 9th.
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to ask you that dyslexia, did it affect your education? Did you miss going to the school? And had you not been suffering with dyslexia, do you think the life would have been different?
Oh, no, not at all. I think my parents made this brilliant decision because when I was growing up, remediation was not available the way it is right now. So they chose to take up that battle of doing the remediation for me. They became the facilitators. They realized that I am a kinesthetic learner, so they sort of build things around me accordingly. But also it's very, very important for a child to be compassionate, to have empathy, and that only comes when you interact with other people your age. So they made sure that I'm a part of, a lot of boot camps, trainings where I have some interaction or the other people my age. But yes, I would love to be born in a world in today's time where there are more inclusive systems in place. The education ecosystem in itself is focusing on being as inclusive as possible. If I was born today with dyslexia, things would have been difficult, but nowhere do I regret if things would have been a little different when I was born, because I think I got the best of the world that I was existing in during that time. So that worked out well for me.
That sounds really great, and you're giving credit to the people around you. So one last thing I just wanted to know, that what do you prefer, how do you prefer to receive information, visually, audio wise, or in the written format?
So I think I now exist in a world where it does not really matter in which format I am receiving the language, because I can convert into the format which suits me the best. So if it's visual, it works better for me. If it's a written format, I can always convert that text to speech. If I have to write, I can convert my speech to text. If it's a picture of written material, I can always OCR scan it. So the technology has really helped me become agnostic of the format that have been thrown at me, because I can always convert it into a format that suits my needs the best.
Wow, you are definitely an inspiration to other individuals who have dyslexia, and I'm sure they are going to learn a lot from you. Thank you so much for being a part of this program. It was a wonderful interaction, and it was pleasure meeting you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me this dais. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to our sign language interpreter as well. Thank you, Savri, for interpreting each and every word that was discussed here. And thank you to all the viewers हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए. I really hope कि आपके जितने भी डाउट्स थे डिसलेक्सिया से जुड़े हुए वो यहाँ क्लैरिफाई हो गए होंगे. कुछ ऐसा है, अपनी कोई कहानी आप शेयर करना चाहते हैं डिसलेक्सिया से जुड़ा, और कोई सवाल पूछना चाहते हैं, कोई भी डाउट्स है, तो आप हमसे बातचीत कर सकते हैं. चाहे तो फ़ोन कीजिए, चाहे तो हमारे यूट्यूब चैनल के माध्यम से हमसे बातचीत कीजिए. इसी के साथ हम अपना ये ख़ास कार्यक्रम जहां हमने बातचीत की स्टोरीज़ वर्थ शेयरिंग अंडरस्टैंडिंग डिसलेक्सिया, हम यहीं समाप्त करते हैं. एंड अभी आपको eVidya चैनल्स देखते रहना है, क्योंकि बहुत सारे कार्यक्रम हैं आप सभी के लिए, अलग अलग सब्जेक्ट्स पर, अलग अलग टॉपिक्स पर, तो उन्हें देखना बिल्कुल मत भूलिएगा. और आई रियली होप दैट यू हैव अ ग्रेट डे अहेड. प्लीज़ स्टे हेल्दी एंड हैप्पी. टेक केयर. आई एम तन्वी खुराना एंड आई विल टेक अ लीव ऑफ यू. नमस्कार.